I thought the worst pain I'd ever feel was losing my mom 2 years ago. I was wrong. A few weeks ago, I came home from work and found my fiancée of 3 years, my partner, my future, gone. Her things packed, her mom waiting outside, and me standing there like a stranger in my own house. No fight, no warning, not even a goodbye worth the name. Just silence, blocks on social media, and the echo of a life I thought we were building together. When I tell people what happened, they think I must be leaving something out. Like there has to be some big fight, some betrayal, some hidden reason for why my fiancée just walked out. But there wasn't. At least, not that I ever saw. One moment we were making plans, talking about the future, and the next she was gone, like I'd been cut out of my own story. For 3 years, she was my person. We met when I had just turned 23 and she was about to turn 19. Back then, I was still raw from losing my mom. She came into my life at a time when I felt like I had nothing steady left to hold on to. And for a while, she was that steady thing. We built routines, weekend trips, late-night drives, lazy Sundays with takeout and movies. She wasn't just my girlfriend, she became my home. 10 months ago, we got engaged. To be honest, I wasn't ready at first. I was still grieving, still trying to piece myself together. But she wanted it, pushed for it, and I told myself that maybe love wasn't about timing. It was about commitment. I got down on one knee, slid a ring on her finger, and believed her when she said yes. And once I believed it, I wanted it with everything I had. We weren't perfect. We had arguments, small ones mostly. She said I needed to communicate more, to plan dates, to show her romance hadn't died. I agreed. She said she missed her family in Texas and sometimes felt disconnected. I listened. I thought we were just working through normal relationship stuff, the kind of things couples fix if they want to last. 2 days before she left, I even started that conversation, told her I knew we'd been off, but I wanted to make it better. She nodded, said she felt like we were just roommates sometimes, but I thought that was something we could work on. That's why I didn't see it coming. There was no build-up. No, we need to talk. No slammed doors or tearful fights. Just emptiness. I walked into our house after work, and she was already packed. Her mom was outside, waiting in the car like they'd rehearsed this escape. She gave me a hug, one of those stiff, formal hugs you give a distant relative, and then she was gone. I thought it was a bad dream at first. I told myself maybe she just needed space, a break, time to think. But then came the silence. The unanswered texts. The blocked locations. The sudden wall between us after 3 years of living side by side. And the more I tried to reach across that wall, the higher she built it. Little did I know, that was only the beginning. Because what she did next made me question not just our relationship, but whether I'd ever really known her at all. The day she left started like any other. I clocked out of work, drove my old truck home, and thought about the dinner we might have that night. Maybe I'd pick up something on the way. Maybe we'd finally talk about planning the wedding now that my sister's was behind us. Ordinary thoughts, the kind that fill the silence on a drive home. But the silence didn't end when I opened the door. It deepened. Our house, the one we'd bought just a couple months earlier, looked wrong. The air felt hollow, like sound itself had been drained out of the rooms. At first, I thought maybe she was cleaning. Then I saw the boxes, stacked by the door, half the closet empty, her shoes missing from the rack we built together. I froze in the doorway. My chest tightened, like my body already knew what my brain refused to process. She was there, standing near the kitchen counter, her purse on her shoulder, her face unreadable. What's going on? My voice cracked more than I wanted it to. She didn't answer right away. She just adjusted her bag strap and said, "My mom's outside. She's driving me to a hotel tonight." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my mind couldn't register anything else. A hotel? Why? We had a home. We had everything we'd built together right there under that roof. Wait, what? Why? Can we talk about this? She looked at me then, but her eyes were distant, like she'd already checked out of the moment, out of us. I just need to go. That's all. No explanation, no anger, no tears. Just a flat line. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could manage was, "Please, just sit down for 5 minutes. Tell me what's happening." She shook her head. "Not now." And then she hugged me. A quick, cold squeeze, like I was an acquaintance she didn't want to offend. Not the man she'd spent 3 years with. Not the fiancé she'd promised forever to. I heard the sound of car doors outside, the slam of her mom's trunk as they loaded her bags. Her footsteps moved past me, out the door, and then she was gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. It wasn't the silence of peace or comfort. It was the silence of being erased. I sat down on the couch, staring at the spot where her boxes had been. My hands shook. My throat closed up. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but my voice wouldn't come. Later that night, I sent her a text. Just 5 words. I love you. Please talk. She didn't reply. By the next morning, the rest of her things were gone too. I'd put her car in the shop the day before. It was ready, and she picked it up with her mom before heading back to Texas. I didn't even get a goodbye. I told myself this had to be temporary, that she'd come back once she'd cooled off. But when I checked Snapchat later and saw she'd blocked her location from me, the truth started to sink in. This wasn't a break. This was a vanishing act. And the worst part? I had no idea why. But that was just the beginning of my nightmare. The first 24 hours after she left, I lived on autopilot. I went to work. I came home, and every corner of the house screamed her absence. The empty half of the closet. The bare vanity where her makeup used to clutter the counter. Even the coffee mugs looked wrong, like they were waiting for her hand that would never pick them up again. I told myself she'd call. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she was overwhelmed. We'd had arguments before, but they always ended in some form of reconnection. A hug, a late-night talk, a compromise. This time, though, there was nothing. Just silence. So I reached out. I sent another text, longer this time. Calm. Respectful. I wrote, "Before you leave town, can we just sit down for a conversation? I need to understand what's going on." No reply. Hours passed. I stared at my phone like it was a lifeline. Every vibration made my heart jump, only for it to be spam emails or work messages. She wasn't even looking at my words. That night, I checked Snapchat. I hadn't deleted her. Part of me couldn't. I posted a picture of us, something recent, just to remind her of what we had. Within minutes, she replied, "Take it down. I'm trying to be nice by not blocking you." I stared at those words, my stomach dropping. Trying to be nice? Like I was some stranger begging for her attention. I deleted the photo immediately and sent a single okay. But the pit in my chest grew deeper. The next day, she blocked me completely. Snapchat, Facebook, everything. One by one, the doors slammed shut. I hadn't yelled, hadn't begged, hadn't flooded her inbox. I had respected her space. But she still shut me out like I was toxic. That's when the suspicion started to creep in. I replayed our last real conversation in my head. Just 2 days before she left, I brought up the problems between us. I thought it went well. We acknowledged the distance, agreed to work on communication, promised to bring back the small romantic gestures we'd been missing. She admitted she sometimes felt like we were just roommates. It hurt, but I thought we were still on the same page. But what if we weren't? The more I thought about it, the more I realized her exit wasn't impulsive. Boxes don't pack themselves. Moms don't just appear at your door on a whim. She'd planned it. Maybe for days. Maybe for weeks. And that thought gutted me more than the silence itself. I walked through the house, touching the spaces she'd emptied. The bare dresser drawers. The missing photo frames. The way she'd left behind random things, like the candle she bought on our trip or the sweatshirt I used to see her in every night. It felt strategic, like she wanted to leave fragments but take the heart of it with her. And then my mind went darker. Was there someone else? Did she find something in Texas she wasn't telling me about? Or was I really that blind, so unworthy, that she decided life with me wasn't even worth a conversation? The silence didn't just hurt, it accused me, made me second-guess everything. And then I found something that confirmed my worst fears. I wasn't looking for proof. At least, not at first. I told myself I just needed answers. Anything that would explain why the woman I was about to marry had vanished without a word. But when you're left in silence, your mind becomes an investigator. Every detail feels like a clue. Every absence feels like a crime scene. It started small. I noticed she'd taken her journals. She never traveled without them. But this was different. She'd cleared them out. 3 thick notebooks, gone. It was like she didn't want to leave behind her version of the story, as if even her private thoughts had to be erased from this house. Then there were the wedding binders. We'd talked about planning after my sister's ceremony, but she'd been eager, too eager. Guest lists, venues, dress ideas. All of it stacked in one folder. When I checked the drawer, it wasn't there. She'd taken that too. Not to keep planning. No, I realized. It was to shut me out from knowing she had abandoned it entirely. But the real punch came when I spoke to her mom. I'd always been close to her family. Her mother used to call me the son she never had. So I dialed her number, hoping for honesty. She picked up on the second ring, her voice polite but strained. "I don't know what's going on, honey," she said. "I'm just as surprised as you are." But I heard it, the hesitation, the half-second pause before she spoke, the way her tone shifted like she was walking on eggshells. It wasn't full honesty. It was damage control. Did she say anything? Anything at all? I asked. My voice was shaking. A pause again. Then, she said she felt disconnected. Like things weren't the same anymore. Disconnected. That word hit harder than I expected. It wasn't anger, it wasn't betrayal, it was detachment. Like I had become furniture in her life, background noise she could mute. I thanked her mom, hung up, and sat there staring at the wall. That should have been enough. But the truth was still gnawing at me. That night, unable to sleep, I opened my laptop. I hadn't wanted to invade her privacy, but she'd left her email logged in. I wish I could say I closed it right away, that I respected her space even as she tore mine apart. But I didn't. My hands were trembling as I scrolled. And that's when I saw it. An email chain between her and her best friend. Weeks old. The subject line, "I can't do this anymore." The words blurred as I read them. She wrote that she felt trapped, that she was tired of playing house, that she didn't see me as a partner anymore, just a roommate. And then, the part that burned, "He'll never see it coming." I felt my stomach turn. My chest went tight. I slammed the laptop shut and just sat there in the dark, shaking. She hadn't just left. She had scripted my heartbreak. She had written it down, shared it, maybe even laughed about how blind I was. The silence wasn't about confusion. It wasn't about space. It was a decision. A cold, deliberate choice to cut me out without giving me a chance to fight for what we had. I thought the worst part was losing her. I was wrong. The worst part was realizing she had been planning to lose me long before I even knew there was a game being played. And I wasn't ready for what I was about to discover next. After reading that email, sleep became impossible. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the words over and over. "He'll never see it coming." I kept asking myself, how long had she been living like this? Smiling at me during dinner, holding my hand at family gatherings, talking about wedding venues, all while secretly planning her escape? The thought made me nauseous. Over the next few days, the signs I'd overlooked started flashing like neon lights. She'd been pulling away for months, I realized. The shorter conversations, the constant scrolling on her phone when we were together, the way she suddenly had errands that lasted hours, ones I never questioned because I trusted her. I decided to call one of her close friends, someone I thought might give me more than her mom had. At first, she dodged my questions. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "She told us she felt like you were smothering her, that she needed to get out before it got worse." Smothering her? I sat there stunned. I'd given her freedom, supported her when she wanted to move states, respected her choices. If anything, I worried I hadn't been attentive enough. But then came the knife twist. She also said she wasn't sure she ever really wanted to be engaged, that she pushed you into it because she thought it was the only way to move forward. The room spun. I gripped the phone tighter, trying to breathe through the sudden wave of betrayal. So the proposal, the moment I'd convinced myself was the turning point of my healing after losing my mom, wasn't a shared dream. It was her test. A box she wanted checked so she could feel like she'd won. I hung up, shaking. That was when I finally admitted the truth. This wasn't just about disconnect. She had rewritten our entire relationship in her head, and I was left as the fool who didn't get the memo. Later that week, I tried to reach her again. Just one last attempt. I sent her a message saying, "If this is really the end, I need closure. I need to hear it from you." For hours, nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Her reply was short, brutally short. "We're done. I'll only ever be okay with being friends." Friends. The word tasted bitter. We had built a home, a future, a life we were supposed to grow old in, and she reduced it to friends. But the deeper revelation wasn't just her coldness. It was what I realized about myself in that moment. I had been holding on to a version of us that no longer existed. Maybe it hadn't existed for a long time. While I was buying houses and planning futures, she was pulling away, framing me as the villain in a story I never knew was being written. And the cruelest part? She didn't just leave me. She left me questioning whether any of it, the love, the promises, the late-night talks, had ever been real at all. I thought I'd hit rock bottom. But what I was about to face would show me just how much further I could fall. This went so much deeper than I thought. For days after her final message, I lived in a fog. I kept staring at the same line on my phone. We're done. I'll only ever be okay with being friends. Friends. The word dug into me like glass under the skin. How could you downgrade a life partner to a friend with one text? How could 3 years, a proposal, a house, turn into something you discard like an old receipt? I wanted to fight for us. Every instinct screamed at me to push harder, to demand a real conversation, to remind her of the life we had built. But another part of me, the quieter, exhausted part, whispered that I had already been fighting alone for months. Nights became the battleground. I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at the blank wall where our calendar used to hang. On it, we'd marked birthdays, anniversaries, appointments. Now it was gone, leaving nothing but an empty nail in the plaster. My thoughts looped in circles. Do I keep trying? Do I let her go? Do I wait for her to regret this? The arguments in my head grew louder than the silence in the house. If you love her, don't give up yet. But if she loved you, she wouldn't have left like this. Maybe space will change her mind. No, she already decided. She's not confused. She's done. I'd draft messages at 2 in the morning, pouring out everything I wanted to say. Then I'd delete them, convincing myself that silence might be stronger. That maybe if I stopped chasing, she'd realize what she lost. But the thought of doing nothing felt unbearable. I considered driving to Texas, showing up at her doorstep. But then I imagined the look in her eyes, cold, distant, rehearsed, and I knew it would destroy me more than heal me. So I tried another plan, documenting. I wrote everything down. The conversations we had before she left. The way she looked when she walked out the door. The words from her email. It wasn't for revenge, it was for my sanity. If I didn't capture the reality, I was afraid I'd start rewriting it in my head, making excuses for her, convincing myself it hadn't been that bad. And as I wrote, another realization surfaced. I wasn't just grieving her. I was grieving the future I thought we had. The kids we never had. The holidays we'd never share. The milestones we'd never celebrate. It was like attending a funeral where the person wasn't dead. They'd just chosen a life where you no longer existed. The planning in my head wasn't just about her. It was about me. Do I rebuild here, in this house that already feels like a tomb of our relationship? Do I sell it and start fresh? Do I let myself hope she'll regret this? Or do I cut off every thread before it strangles me? The questions piled up, and no answer felt safe. I spent sleepless nights running every scenario, every possible path. And finally, one night, clarity hit me. If I was ever going to survive this, I had to stop waiting for her to save me. I had to decide for myself what came next. And that's when I knew what I had to do. Clarity sounds good in theory. In reality, it felt like grabbing a rope in the middle of a storm, better than drowning, but still far from safe. After weeks of spinning in circles, I told myself I was done waiting. If she wanted silence, then I'd give her silence. If she wanted distance, then I'd give her space. I would start moving forward, even if every step felt like walking barefoot over glass. My first action was simple. I stopped reaching out. No more texts, no more half-written drafts at 2 in the morning. I muted her accounts, not to erase her, but to stop torturing myself every time she posted something that didn't include me. For the first time since she left, I wasn't chasing. And strangely, that shift gave me a flicker of relief. I started small. Cooked my own dinners instead of eating fast food. Cleaned the house. Not because she was coming back, but because I had to live there, even if it felt empty. I forced myself back into routines. Work, gym, grocery runs. It felt mechanical at first, but routine was better than collapse. Friends reached out, some cautiously. A buddy invited me for beers, and I went, even though I barely spoke. Sitting there, nodding along, I realized how much I'd been isolating myself. For a moment, I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the start of healing. Then came the false resolution. Out of nowhere, she texted me. The same number that had been silent for weeks lit up my phone. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. It wasn't long, just, hey, how are you? My hands shook as I typed back, my brain scrambling between anger and hope. I wanted to say, how do you think I am? But instead I wrote something neutral. I'm okay. You. Her reply came quick, just checking in. Didn't want you to think I hated you. Hated me? After everything she'd done, that was her concern? But beneath the confusion, I felt it, the spark of hope. Maybe this was the crack in the wall. Maybe silence had been her way of figuring things out, and now she was ready to talk. I asked if she wanted to meet. She said, "I don't think that's a good idea. I just wanted to make sure you're okay." And just like that, the rope I thought I'd grabbed slipped away. She wasn't reaching back. She wasn't reconsidering. She was easing her conscience, dropping crumbs of kindness so she could sleep better at night, while I still starved for closure. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Her words spun in my head. "Didn't want you to think I hated you." As if indifference was better. I realized my false resolution wasn't just her text. It was my belief that moving on would be simple, that silence would magically stitch the wound shut. But healing isn't linear. It's jagged. It bleeds. And her message had ripped open what little progress I'd made. I thought I'd found a way forward. But her shadow was still in every corner. And what happened next made me question whether I'd ever truly escape her. I thought the hardest part was her silence. But silence, as brutal as it was, at least left room for hope. What came next tore away even that. It started with her family. I'd been close to them, closer than I'd ever expected to be with a partner's relatives. Holidays, cookouts, late-night card games. Her mom once told me I felt like a son. So when I saw her name pop up on my phone one evening, I felt a rush of relief. Maybe she was going to explain. Maybe this was the bridge I'd been waiting for. Instead, the conversation turned my stomach. She sounded polite, almost rehearsed. "I just wanted to check in. She told us you've been struggling." "Of course I'm struggling," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. She left without a word. There was a pause. Then her mom sighed. She said she felt unsafe. Unsafe. The word hit like a blade. I nearly dropped the phone. What? I could barely breathe. I never touched her. Never threatened her. Where is this even coming from? She didn't go into details, her mom said quietly. But she said she felt like she couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I wanted to scream. Unsafe? That wasn't just an excuse. That was character assassination. It painted me as a villain, someone dangerous, when all I'd done was love her with everything I had. After we hung up, I paced the house, my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't just about her leaving anymore. This was about her rewriting our entire history and selling that version to the people who used to hug me like family. The next blow came on social media. Even though she'd blocked me, word travels. A friend sent me screenshots of a post she'd made, vague but pointed. A caption about finding courage to leave toxicity. A filtered selfie with a hollow smile. And the comments, dozens of friends cheering her on, telling her she was brave, telling her they always knew she deserved better. Better than me. It was like being erased in real time. Not only was I abandoned, I was now the villain in a story I didn't recognize. And the worst part? People believed it. I wanted to defend myself, to shout from the rooftops that it wasn't true, that I wasn't the monster she was painting me as. But how? What could I post? Screenshots of me begging for a conversation. Photos of our smiling faces before she decided I was nothing? No matter what I did, it would look like desperation. For the first time, I felt real fear. Not just of losing her, but of losing my reputation, my standing with people who once saw me as family. If she kept spreading this narrative, where would it stop? Would friends cut me off? Would neighbors whisper? Would I be forever known as the guy who made her feel unsafe? The heartbreak had been private, but now it was turning public. And public wounds bleed longer. That night, staring at the dark ceiling, I realized I wasn't just fighting for closure anymore. I was fighting for the truth of who I was. And what happened next made me wonder if I was already too late. There's a point in grief where the pain doesn't just hurt, it reshapes you. That's where I found myself. Everywhere I turned, I felt the weight of her absence and the shadow of her story. Friends who used to check and stopped replying. Mutual acquaintances looked at me differently, their eyes darting away like they didn't know what to believe. Her vague posts about escaping toxicity spread further than I ever imagined. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. Everyone knew who she was talking about. One night, I went to the grocery store. It should have been routine: milk, bread, coffee. Instead, I caught someone staring at me in the aisle. A woman who had once laughed with us at a barbecue. She smiled politely, but it was thin, guarded. And in that instant, I realized I wasn't just grieving her. I was grieving the version of myself that people used to trust. At home, the silence grew heavier. The walls seemed to lean inward, as if the house itself knew it had been built on a false foundation. I had bought it for us. Now it was just me and the echoes of plans that would never happen. I found myself avoiding entire rooms. The bedroom felt haunted. The kitchen table felt foreign. The couch still carried the faint indentation where she used to curl up, and every time I saw it, my chest burned. Sleep became my enemy. I'd lie awake replaying every moment, every conversation, every laugh, searching for the exact second when love had turned to detachment. But no matter how far back I went, I couldn't find it. That was the cruelest part. There was no single moment, no obvious fracture, just a slow erosion until one day, she decided I was gone from her life. My body began to betray me. I lost weight. Food tasted like ash. My hands shook when I tried to write. At work, people asked if I was okay, and I lied through clenched teeth. Just tired, I'd say, when in truth I hadn't felt truly awake since the day she walked out. The lowest point came one night when I scrolled back through old photos. Trips we'd taken, smiles we'd shared, the housewarming picture in front of the sold sign when we bought the place. For a moment, I convinced myself those smiles had been real, that maybe she hadn't been pretending all along. Then I remembered her words in that email. He'll never see it coming. It was like ice water down my spine. Even my happiest memories now felt staged, poisoned by the knowledge that she'd been planning her exit long before I knew it. I broke down on the living room floor, sobbing until my throat went raw. I wasn't just abandoned. I was erased, replaced by a caricature she'd painted for others to believe. In that moment, I didn't know if I'd ever get up again. I didn't know if there was a future where this pain didn't define me. And then, in the middle of that darkness, a thought hit me so hard it felt like a spark in the void. I couldn't control her story, but maybe, just maybe, I could reclaim mine. I realized what I had to do to end this once and for all. The breaking point came when I realized silence was no longer survival. It was surrender. As long as I stayed quiet, her version of the story would be the only one people heard. And I wasn't willing to be remembered as a ghost in my own life. So I acted. It started with her family. I wrote a long, careful message to her mom and dad. Not defensive, not bitter, just factual. I detailed everything. How I supported their daughter when she wanted to move states. How I put her car in the shop. How I bought the house for us only 2 months before she left. I explained that I never hurt her, never threatened her, never once made her unsafe. I even admitted where I had fallen short. Times I'd been distant, times grief had pulled me into silence. And then I wrote the line that mattered most. I don't expect you to take my side, but I can't sit back and let a false version of me replace the truth. Whatever she's telling people, I need you to know, I loved her and I never once harmed her. I hit send, my hands trembling. Then I reached out to a few mutual friends, the ones who had started pulling away. Same approach. Calm, measured, truthful. I told them I wasn't asking for loyalty. I just wanted to set the record straight before silence made the lie permanent. The responses trickled in. Some didn't answer at all, but a few did, and those few were enough. One friend wrote back, I appreciate you saying this. Honestly, I didn't know what to believe. I'm sorry I pulled back. Another said, she's been telling everyone she felt trapped, but the way she's been handling it seems off. I believe you. It wasn't full redemption, but it was the crack I needed. Proof that the truth, spoken plainly, still had weight. The real confrontation, though, came when she texted me again. Out of the blue, late one night. I heard you've been talking to people. Why can't you just let it go? I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. For weeks I'd begged for words from her, and now here they were, accusing, irritated, like I was the villain for defending myself. I typed slowly, deliberately, because you left without a word, then rewrote the story to make me the bad guy. I won't let lies define me. You don't want to talk, fine. But I'm not carrying your version of me for the rest of my life. She didn't reply. Not that night, not the next. And strangely, I didn't care. For the first time since she left, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, not victory, something sharper. A sense of reclaiming. I couldn't change what she did. I couldn't force her to admit the truth. But I could stand in mine. The climax wasn't shouting, or begging, or dramatic closure. It was quieter, heavier, finally choosing myself. And in that choice, I felt the faintest outline of freedom. Because while she had erased me from her life, I had finally stopped erasing myself. In the weeks after that final exchange, something unexpected happened. The world didn't collapse. I'd been bracing for fallout, for more rumors, more isolation, more whispers that I was the man who made her unsafe. But instead, life simply moved on. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was moving with it. Her family never replied to my long message. Maybe they believed me, maybe they didn't. But I realized I didn't need their validation anymore. What mattered was that I said my truth out loud. I put words to the silence that had been suffocating me. And that, in itself, was freeing. A few friends came back around. Not all of them. Some ties are permanently cut when betrayal runs this deep. But the ones who stayed did so because they saw me for who I really was, not for the story she spun. And maybe that was enough. Maybe quality mattered more than numbers. The house still felt heavy, like a mausoleum of our failed future. But I stopped avoiding rooms. I cooked in the kitchen again. I slept in the bed without flinching at the empty space beside me. I even started adding my own touches, photos of my mom, books stacked in places she used to claim as hers. Slowly, the house became mine instead of ours. There were nights I still broke down. Grief doesn't leave in a straight line. It circles back when you least expect it. But those nights grew less frequent. And in the daylight, I started to see pieces of myself I thought she had taken with her. The greatest revelation came not from her absence, but from my survival of it. I realized that what broke me wasn't just her leaving. It was the way she tried to rewrite me in the process. She wanted me to be the villain so she could walk away as the brave survivor. But the truth was simpler. She wasn't brave. She was running. And maybe one day she'll look back and feel the weight of what she did. Maybe she won't. That's not mine to control anymore. What I control is this. I know who I am. I know I never hurt her, never trapped her, never became the monster she tried to paint. And if people can't see that, then they were never really on my side to begin with. In a way, losing her felt like losing my mom all over again, an emptiness that swallowed every corner of my life. But unlike with my mom, this loss wasn't fate. It was choice. Her choice. And maybe that's why it cut so deep. But now, standing on the other side, I see something I couldn't before. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't clinging to someone else. It's refusing to abandon yourself when they do. I'm not healed. Not fully. But I'm no longer broken beyond repair. And when I look in the mirror, I don't see the ghost she left behind. I see a man who walked through fire and lived. If you've listened this far, thank you. I know this wasn't easy to hear, because it wasn't easy to live. When she left, I thought the silence would kill me. But what I've learned is that silence doesn't define you. Your truth does. No matter how someone twists the story, no matter what version they tell the world, the reality you carry inside can't be erased. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt discarded, rewritten, or abandoned, know this. You are not the story they told about you. You're the story you choose to keep writing. I lost a fiancé. I lost friends. I even lost the family I thought I'd gained. But I didn't lose myself. And that's why I'm still standing. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been left questioning your own reality because someone else tried to rewrite it? How did you find your way back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if stories like this hit home for you, consider subscribing. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We tell the truths people try to bury.